JoJo with AICN, and today I'm interviewing Stephan Witherspoon of Duluth. And then, Stephan, if you can tell us the year you were born.
I was born in April 6th, 1974.
All right. And were you born in Duluth?
I was born in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay. And then can you tell me a little bit about your mom and your dad?
Yeah, my mother is a long-time Duluth. I think she's from Shreveport, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been up Duluth, I'm guessing, maybe 40, 50 years now. And my father was born in 1914 in World War II, and he was a Baptist minister. And he came here into Duluth, I think, back in '65 because there was a base, an air base on in our town, up in Hermantown, I believe.
Okay. Did he ever mention why he wanted to stay in Duluth?
Well, he just, it was surrounded by water, and we're avid fishers, so he definitely took advantage of fishing in the outdoors.
Yeah. Is there anything else about his service you wanted to?
Well, I was a chaplain. I lived in Germany, for a very long time. Even after the war, and I think he stayed in Germany for maybe 6-7 years. But and then when he came to Duluth, he had a church called New Hope Baptist Church, and he also had a restaurant called Doc Witherspoon's Chicken Shack. And so we had our house, the church, the restaurant, and my parents were community servants, and so that's where we were brought up. My father, faith-based, and so all were welcome at the table, and if anybody could come for a good word or some food or anything like that if they were struggling or just needed to hear a good word. So that's how we were brought up, and that's how all of us kids will continue to do currently.
Yeah. So, how did he get involved with opening the chicken shack and the church?
Well, he was a minister, so he just wanted his own church to call his own. But the restaurant business, my father cooked very, very well, and so so he just he has his signature, fried chicken, of course, which I think I'm the only one in the family that can cook it really well. But and then a lot of other things too, like chicken and dumplings, pies, caramel rolls, just other comfort foods, and with a soul food aspect to it. But so he just loved to cook.
Yeah. And what was your father's name?
Reverend Sylvester Witherspoon.
Okay. And your mother's name?
Sharon Lee Witherspoon, maiden name Goins.
Goins. And you said she's from Shreveport. Do you know why she came to Duluth?
I think in her former relationship, she may have been with somebody in the service who was based in Duluth, or who came to Duluth for a little while.
And then, do you know some information about your grandparents you would like to share?
Well, since my dad was born in 1914, we hear stories, and all that stuff, but my mother's mother and father from Shreveport, Louisiana, and they just worked. They just worked. They took care of their kids, and we're in the church, and so led by faith. And so yeah.
And did your grandparents join your parents at any point in Duluth, or did they stay where they
stayed? Yeah, my mother's parents stayed in Shreveport, Louisiana. Yeah.
Okay. And your father's parents?
My father's parents, we don't know because, like I said, he was born in 1914, so, unfortunately, we were too young to even get to know them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how would you characterize your neighborhood growing up?
Characterize my neighborhood? Man, that's a good question. I would characterize it as good, welcoming, but also difficult.
Okay. Yeah, and what did you find difficult about it?
Well, coming from a big family, 6 girls, 5 boys, and so we have a big family, and you do a lot of community service, but you're African heritage. As you get older, as kids, you try to find your own individuality. And so, dealing with racism and stuff like that growing up, and when you're young, you really don't know how to deal with it. Being blessed, by my parents' words and guidance, through that time, myself, I had a very hard time with it because every time I heard a offensive word, the N-word, I would fight. I would physically fight somebody. And I did that probably 20, 30 times and was detained in a juvenile center for doing that about 16 times.
Yeah. And so when people use derogatory names towards you, was this in school, in the neighborhood?
All the above. All the above.
Okay. And it was maybe neighbors or people you knew?
Yes, that too, and just people, in the city too. It was, racism was alive then. It's alive now, and it'll never go away until we all deal with it in a very constructive way. So, that still, and that still remains being processed. But in the meantime, it's my duty and my focus to help educate and guide our youth to deal with that in a positive way.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of these incidents happen at schools. So maybe you can tell us what school you went to and then what it was like. And you kind of mentioned that, but what it was like to be, a black kid growing up in a majority white school.
Well, I think after I really noticed it, you had to be starting in junior high in 7th grade, I suppose. Even though I noticed it when I was younger age, but in school, I went to Washington Junior High. And that is the Washington Studios in Duluth right now, where the NAACP offices are. And so, I dealt with it, in school. And like I said, I fought all the time. So, when I fought, I had to gain, I thought at that time that would gain respect, for me individually, so they wouldn't say that to me or anybody who was around me. And so, in saying that, it was very, very tough. But then again, though, too, once you grow up in the area that you're born in, you get to know people, you get to know families, and things of that nature. And so, as we got older, the friends and acquaintances or whoever, they kind of just realized and knew that, hey, maybe, we got to change our point of view or change the way we were raised because, it's just, the racism is in every aspect in our society and it's like a woven basket that just sits there. And so we have to take that basket apart, burn it, and build another one together.
Do you feel like you were, even as a teenager, able to address that with some of the kids you came across? And if you were, did you feel that was a burden, or was that something you wanted to take up?
Oh, I definitely wanted to take up. When I was younger, I dealt with it in a different way because I was young and I didn't know how to handle that when it was, directly, towards me. And so I felt like I could handle it with my fist. And so in saying that, through fear, I guess, nobody would mess with me. But at the same time, it wasn't constructive because we want people to really understand what it is. And knowing that, we live, in society where, all these isms are created to separate people. And everything not created because, there's some that that really are alive, tangible, and we have to deal with it. So, but you have to go through those experiences to really understand what it's like to deal with that. Because I still deal with racism at least 3-4 times a week, if not more. I just deal with it differently.
Mm-hmm. And then just jumping from your experience from junior high, what high school did you attend, and what was that like for you?
I went to Central High School in Duluth, Minnesota. So, I mean, it was fine because as you get older, you create relationships and friends, and if you're from a town, I mean, it's a big, small town, but you kind of know everybody. You kind of connected to everybody. So, and our family was well known. So when I was in high school, I was just, I made sure that I validated everybody's life and experience who I came across, and I wanted to make sure that I made my mark. So, I'm a singer-songwriter by trade, but also too, I love people and I love advocating for people. And so, even in school when, there were like the special needs kids or whatever, and they were getting picked on whatever, I made sure that I stood up for them. It was a learning, experience for all because, when somebody has that type of hate towards anybody or they want to hurt somebody, there's something going wrong in their lives or some kind of issues in their lives that they need to address. And so you kind of want to, open that bottle and really kind of talk about it and kind of express yourself in a positive way. But that's learned, that's very difficult to do sometimes, especially when you're a youth. So, go ahead.
Yeah. Is there any incident that stands out to you the most when it came to those experiences you were talking about with racism that you faced?
Oh, for sure. Because the first time I had to deal with it. I was 10 years old, and I was in the park, and we call it 4th Street Park, but I think it's Portland Square Park, whatever. But that's where we played, the baseball, softball, and all this other stuff in the park. And I remember a group of white kids, probably 4 or 5 of them, come up to me, and they did a chant. And the chant was a nigger and a white. And if the white don't win, we all jump in. And so, and that's when I kind of said, oh, I looked at my skin, looked at them, and that's when the fighting began.
And is that one of the first times you realized that you were different than most of the people who lived in your neighborhood?
Well, I mean, it was a time where I recognized the hate towards people of different color. And so I made it a personal point to teach everybody a lesson who I came across whose words were directed towards me in that manner. And they're usually white males. And so, yeah, it was tough. It was very, very tough. Yeah.
And that first incident when you were 10, were you able to tell your parents about it? And if you were, what was their reaction?
Yeah, I was. And my father, was very in tune with the community and the struggles and the lives and the experiences of people. So, but at the same time, coming from a big family, and you're out and about in the community, you will experience stuff that's kind of isolated towards you, or just as you go on your everyday lives. So I just had to figure out a way for myself. I thought my way was the best way to handle it, and that was to fight. My father didn't. Yeah. No, I did not agree with that, but on the other side of that, he always just said, just make sure that, that you treat everybody the same and that you accept people for who they are and that all are welcome to the Lord's table. And so, as I got older, I kind of grasped onto that. But like I said, if you're an individual and you deal with those experiences, you handle them in your own way until you learn how to handle them in a more positive way.
Mm-hmm. And a little bit before you mentioned that your family was pretty well known. How often did you and your family members socialize with your neighbors?
Quite often. My father, like I said, my father had his church, a restaurant, and our home, so he would always be cooking. So when anybody from the block or the other block knew that Reverend Witherspoon was cooking, they would come running. And all were welcome. And so in that aspect, everybody knew that.
Do you think your neighbors had some of their first encounters with soul food through your father?
More than likely. More than likely. And they loved it.
So you would see people come in through the Chicken Shack and the Baptist Church. Do you feel like it was pretty integrated, or do you feel like those places are segregated?
Well, I mean, as far as my father's concerned, in his ministry, he did have a following called the Christian Fellowship Workers, and so back in the late '60s, early '70s, my father mentored a lot of college kids, back in the day, use the words, and some hippies, who turned to Christ. And so they liked my father's message. They liked what he did in the community. So, they wanted to really, surround themselves around him. And they're called the Christian Fellowship Workers. And you hear some of that, in some older songs. I think the song by Elton John, and he mentions Jesus Freaks or something like that. And so, because they were all around the United States. My father here in Duluth, he had a pretty big following of those people, and they were mostly white college kids, or white kids, yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit about your father and the church. What other connections were there to the wider Black life in Duluth, and can you tell me a little bit about what that was like?
Well, we had a great community sense as far as the African heritage community was concerned back in the day, because they knew each other, they respected each other, and they worked together on many, many issues. And when you are a small population in the city, and you live there and have experiences, you congregate to the ones, or you gravitate to the ones that kind of go through some experiences. But as an African heritage community, they knew each other, they worked with each other, they helped raise each other's kids. It was like a village, a collective. And so, and it was always known that if any of the African heritage youth in the neighborhood hang with other families, and they know their parents and have a relationship with their parents, you best believe they will call you out like they call their own children and say, you know better than that, stop it.
Do you feel that is something that's continued?
Well, yeah, for sure. I think, relationships are very important to me because you get to know a person and know their heart and know what they strive for, their goals and aspirations and dreams, and that connection. And I think that human connection has been lost for a very, very long time, and we need that back. It's disheartening to watch our youth and other people in a city, in a town that are a part of schools and all that stuff that does not fully accommodate or are educated on racial issues that are very much alive. And so we have to take it upon ourselves, to teach our youth that. And in every conversation that a single mother or a father or parents together of an African heritage, kids, their kids and their kids' friends, you will have the discussion on how to act, what to say, what not to say, how to move when you are confronted by a person who seems like an authority or an officer. And that is every talk that a parent has with their child. If they're African heritage, I know the other cultures, but I can only speak to mine. But so that was one of the very first lessons that we had to learn as well.
Did you ever have to put any of those lessons into action?
Always. Even though that I am the president of the Duluth branch NAACP, the co-chair of Clay Jackson Image Memorial, and a community activist, I dip in a big way, in a different way, because there's going to be people who try to bring you down, who try to talk about you or do whatever, because you are kind of in that role, and so you have to learn to stay focused. You have to learn to value relationships, but also to communicate and be transparent and work as a collective. But in saying that is not all easy, especially in a town like this.
Right. When you speak about working as a collective, and I just want to go back to when you were younger, and maybe you can even give us some dates too, but what organizations existed to celebrate Black culture as you were growing up in Duluth?
They had the NAACP. There were certain places like the Hillside Community Center, Copeland, which is now Harbor Highlands up there. So there were places where we could go that were safe havens, where we felt like we are safe and have resources. And so, and we try to, we always try to maintain that and always, be available for that, because, our youth, especially our youth, if they're out in the community, they would know where to go to be safe and to make sure that they are welcomed. And so, my elders did a pretty good job in doing that, for sure.
And can you name the two organizations you said again, and just maybe talk about some of the resources or programs that they offered?
Are you talking about grown up or that I'm a part of now?
Growing up.
Okay, so the Sister Hillside Community Center was a center where it was we had people of color working there, but they provided meals, activities, and just people to connect with in the community that look like them. And there certain people too that would be in the community that we could always call, talk to, or whatever to get back focused or get help or whatever, because those people felt like they need to be out there for for our youth and all those things because of the different experiences and what the climate was like or is like up here. And so there's always resources for us to reach out to individuals in a few places where we could go that were safe havens for us.
Do you feel like there were also individuals in the neighborhood who provided that role?
Absolutely. And there are individuals too, another color who did that as well. People, if you realize or you were brought up in a family or an experience where that we are all human beings and every human being deserves dignity and respect.
For the second organization, if you could name it, and then just talk about how they offered support or resources.
So are you talking about Copeland Center?
Yes.
Okay, so Copeland was, it's where Harbor Highlands is now. That's in Duluth, on top of the hill, by Central High School. That was just a place where the people of color worked as well. Like a sports and after school spot where kids can hang, and kids of color were very welcome. Yeah. So it was, that kind of spot where kids can be kids, and didn't have to worry about any derogatory names or anything like that. So it was just safe for them to go there.
So just kind of switching gears a little bit, what were your ties, do you think, to outdoors and nature, and how do you think that would be different than a city experience, if it is different?
Well, I was very blessed to have my father be an avid fisherman. The very first lessons that my father taught us five boys was to love and respect women and to go fishing. We were taught that at a very young age, and so we just love the outdoors, to do that. But also too, we grew up in an area where we had a creek, and we would play games in the creek, and there was a fishing hole a swimming hole in that creek as well, and it was called Big Ten. And so we were just lucky and blessed to have that aspect of the outdoors as kids. And with the loop being on the hill, you can imagine in the wintertime sliding and skiing, how fun that was.
How young were you when you learned how to ski?
Well, I didn't fully learn how to ski, for one. So it wasn't my favorite. I went a few times. It wasn't my favorite to do, but I don't know, like maybe a few times. But I love to snowmobile and go sliding, and then of course fishing.
So can you tell me about a notable historic event that happened in your town and how it impacted your community and your family?
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I do. Back in 1994, my brother Samuel and my two of the best friends, Keith Hermanson and Peter Moore, they got murdered. They all got murdered in one night. It was the day after my brother Sam's 21st birthday, and it was a triple homicide in Duluth, Minnesota, and that changed our lives forever, for sure. During that time, my father had symptoms of Alzheimer's, and so we were dealing with that, but also too, we had a big family, and so so we have, you party, you do all this, do all that, whatever as kids and all that, and have relationships, but but they were murdered in one night, and that was a very, very tough period in our lives. Very tough.
Yeah. So how did your family respond and deal with that terrible situation?
Well, my mother's amazing, for one. She's just like a matriarch, and she's led by faith, and so she was the foundation that kept it together for all of us. But I think when it happened, and when and at first when everybody found out, the media, right away, not right away, but maybe a day or two after, it was a negative thing, and I can't remember what media station it was, what news station it was, but they were telling the community like, my brother Sam and the other two guys are they're partiers, they're troublemakers, blah 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 blah, and then the guy who murdered him, was a great guy from Proctor, and he plowed the Proctor thing, and they're trying to make him look like he was a great guy, and trying to make my brother and my friends like that they're terrible. Mm-hmm. And so that really offended me personally, because of how much my father and mother did for this community. And so I remember, and I think it was Denny Anderson at the time. He was a newscaster. I know that somebody called my mom and just apologized about that. So I'm not sure if that was even his station who did that, but what I do know is that a lot of people were like us offended in the highway. And so, but we had a major community response. Major community response. And that was really a blessing.
Can you tell me about that response?
We've had people, we had people who knew us, knew our families, our friends. They just surrounded my family. And they really just showed support and love, and it was consistent and it kind of helped build us up and keep us up in that time of grief. My brother Sam had a twin, and she was, and her name is Serena, and she died a day after birth, and so. And Sam got murdered a day after his birthday. So they were born the same day and died on the same day, 21 years later.
Yeah, huge impact for your family. And you said the community was there. Do you feel like the community was there across racial lines?
Absolutely. Well, especially, with all the friends that, were affiliated with my dad, especially with Christian fellowship workers and all that. And then my mom's family for Shreveport, and then our individuals' friends, and people, we really had a lot of support. was, and I mean, it was truly a blessing.
Um, yeah. So I also wanted to know how you got involved with the NAACP in Duluth and how you became the NAACP president.
Well, I was, growing up and stuff like that, with family being involved in the NAACP, in other organizations, there's a man, Mr. Quaddy Washington, who worked for the city for like 40 or 50 years, and he was the president of the NAACP in Duluth for about 20 years. And so, when I committed, I worked for the community years ago. I just wanted to be, a servant leader for the people. And so I just, when he kind of sat back and wanted to retire, whatever, I just saw the opportunity to kind of step in and get the torch handed to me. And so it's an honor and a blessing. At the same time, and we still got to work on these issues that really plague our communities and plague America, and it has. And so we always have to be vigilant and keep our eye on the prize to make that change in our society. And who knows if it's going to happen when it happens, and when it happens. Some people say it hasn't happened. Some people say there's movement and whatever. What I say is there's a lot of work to be done still.
Mm-hmm. And you see that work through the NAACP. So what kind of duties or what kind of issues have you had come across your desk in your tenure at the organization?
I see my work at NAACP in Clayton Jackson McGee, but I see my work as a human being and a community activist ultimately in my community. And what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. So what kind of issues and duties have you seen come across your desk since you've been with the NAACP in Duluth?
Oh, there's oh my goodness. There's issues with incarceration, fair justice, there's issues with racism, on jobs, going to places that get treated badly, just walking in the street, there's issues, there's policy and procedure issues, on the highest level, that's political. It's just across the board. There's no lack of racial issues anywhere in the United States. And so if you come across any place or any person who's doing this kind of work, you will run across the same themes and and all the same experiences. It's just really, it gives you an avenue in an organization like that to really address issues and try to attack them in a way where it's going to be impactful and that it creates tangible change.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been with the NAACP in Duluth?
My second term, so and this is my last year, so it's a 2-year term, and so I'm not going to run again after December. It's been an experience.
Yeah. So when did you start there?
I started there 2017, November of 2013.
Yeah. What goals do you have for your last year in your term?
I just want more. I want the organization to be more community focused, like with direct care, and resources. I mean, obviously the goal is ultimately to change policy and procedure on the highest level. We all know that. We have a lot of young people who are millennials, whatever, who are highly intelligent. They're movers and shakers, and they are a force. And it's going to be great to watch them thrive and blossom in this new age. But also, too, though, we want to make sure that we advocate for the underrepresented and the people whose voices are not being heard. And so I make that my main focus is direct contact to the community. And that is a tough job. But I signed up for it, I love to do it, and I will do it till the day I die.
And then I do have one more question. So you did mention that you work on the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you see your role in that organization?
So I'm a co-chair of Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial. It was 3 African heritage men who were lynched back in 1920 because they were accused of raping a white woman. And their lynchings were put on display in Duluth, Minnesota, on an avenue downtown in front of 10,000 people. And so, we have to bring that truth to light. We have to do some healing, and we must make sure that they are never forgotten and that their stories are told.
And then you guys have something planned for June 2020. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, so we did have a lot of events planned for 2020 up to the June 15 event to have 10,000 folks in Duluth, Minnesota. And then our keynote speaker, Brian Stevenson. But since COVID-19 happened, all the in-person stuff are going to happen in 2021. But we will have something this year, next month, to kind of keep people engaged and also commemorate their lives.
And then lastly, is there anything else you want to relate to us about your experiences growing up in Duluth?
Yeah, we all have emotions. We all cry. We all laugh. We all deal with tragedy. We all love our family. We all have all these experiences, the human experiences that are really not so different as far as being a human being, but as far as racism and classism and all that, that's very much alive. And we need to knock those walls down and really come together. And that might be to some people a dream that may be a fallacy or something that's not reachable. But I believe it is reachable though. I believe it is because I believe the relationships matter. And I believe that everybody has something to bring to the table. And so I really want to be that person out in the community that brings people together, and that teaches, that educates, but also have that connection of, hey, we are in this together. And so, but there are things that we must realize and that we must deal with, and it may be difficult. But if we put our egos aside, and if we talk about the truth and what really does happen, has happened, and work on a solution together, it can work. But there are a lot of things that we need to do to to have that platform to really have a constructive way to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you on behalf of AAICM for participating in our experiences, and thank you for sharing your story.